Hey everyone, and welcome. We're about to go on a pretty wild ride across our amazing planet. We're going to see how geography, of all things, really shapes everything around us. I'm talking from the absolute coldest glaciers to the craziest, busiest cities. You ready? Let's jump right in.
I mean, it's a great question, right? Think about it. How can the same planet have these scorching hot deserts and at the same time, these massive, massive fields of ice? It feels like it shouldn't be possible, but the answer is, believe it or not, surprisingly simple. It's actually drawn right on the map of our world.
And here's the secret. It's all about these invisible lines. What you're looking at here is a map of the planet's climate zones. These are basically huge bands that just wrap right around the globe. And these are the real reason we see such an incredible mix of environments. You could almost think of them as the invisible architects of our entire world.
Okay, so let's actually take a little trip through these zones, shall we? We're going to start at the total extremes and then work our way into the middle. And we're not just going to talk about weather. Nope, we're going to dig into how these invisible lines have literally shaped the course of human history.
First stop on our tour, the polar zone. Yep, we're heading to the very top and the very bottom of the Earth, to the absolute coldest, most unforgiving places you can imagine.
Wow, just look at this. On one side, you've got the incredible scale of the ice itself. A landscape of frozen water that just goes on for miles and miles. And then on the other side, you see life that has figured out how to thrive here. It's just a world of really stark, breathtaking beauty.
So, here's the key takeaway. The polar zone is all about that intense, year-round cold. And because of that, trying to do any large-scale farming is, it's pretty much impossible. That's the main reason these parts of the world are the least populated places on Earth. Any life here, whether it's a huge polar bear or a tiny little plant, has to be super specialized just to make it.
Okay, let's do a complete 180. We're going from one extreme straight to the other. Say goodbye to the ice because we're heading for the planet's warm, super vibrant belt, the tropical zone.
And right away, the first thing that hits you is just how packed with life everything is. The tropical zone, it circles the equator, which is where the sun's energy is the most direct. So you get this constant heat, mix that with tons of rain, and boom, you've got the perfect incubator for an absolute explosion of all kinds of different life. So totally different from the polar regions, right? The tropics are hot and wet all year long. There aren't really any seasons to speak of. It's just this constant engine of growth that keeps the jungles going and supports this unbelievable variety of animals. It's a world that's always growing, which is a huge contrast to the seasons we're about to look at.
All right, let's find some middle ground. We're now looking at the zones that are sandwiched right between those extremes. These are the subtropical and the temperate zones, and this is where a massive chunk of the world's population, including me, actually lives.
In this comparison just perfectly shows the difference. Over on the left, you've got a classic subtropical scene. It's warm, often really dry, which is why you get deserts. Then on the right, you have a classic temperate scene from Sweden. Look how green and lush it is. They're clearly in the middle of a proper summer season.
This little table breaks it down really nicely. The subtropical zone, you're talking long, warm periods. But the temperate zone, that's where Sweden is, that's all about moderation. It's about having 4 distinct seasons. And it's that balance, that predictability, that makes it such a great place for so many people to live. It's really no accident that most of history's biggest empires and economies grew out of these middle zones. Why? Because those predictable seasons meant you could have stable farming and grow more food than you needed.
Okay, so we've got the big global picture now. Let's zoom in a bit. We're going to use Europe as our case study to see how these huge landforms, mountains and rivers, really give a continent its own unique personality. First up, let's talk about the giants. Mountains. Think of them like the backbone of a continent, and they do way more than just affect the weather. For centuries, they've been like natural fortresses, creating these little pockets of unique culture on either side. They literally decide where you can build a road, where an army can pass through, and where countries draw their borders.
And wow, Europe has some famous ones. You've got the iconic Alps right in Central Europe. You've got the Pyrenees, which act as this natural wall between Spain and France. And then way over in Russia, there's Elbrus, which is Europe's highest mountain. And get this, it's actually a dormant volcano. Every single one of these ranges created its own set of challenges for the people living nearby. Everything from trying to trade through high passes to being so isolated that ancient languages survived.
So, we've talked about the solid, mighty mountains. Now let's shift to the flowing, dynamic power of rivers.
If mountains are the bones of the continent, splitting things up, then you have to think of rivers as the arteries, connecting everything. They don't just carry water. They carry goods, they carry ideals, they carry the very seeds of civilization itself. Let's look at a couple of really key examples. The Rhine, in Western Europe, it's not just some waterway for trade. It's the whole reason the Ruhr Valley became Germany's industrial powerhouse. And then you have the Volga in Russia, Europe's longest river. It created what's called the Black Earth region, which is one of the most fertile places on the entire planet. It's simple. Cities pop up on their banks, and entire economies are built around their flow.
So, we've looked at the global scale, we've looked at the continental scale, but now we get to the most important part of all. How does any of this stuff actually affect people's day-to-day lives? How does the land literally shape the way we live?
You know, there's this fantastic concept for this called Levnedset. It basically means way of life, and it's a pretty simple idea really, that where you are has a massive influence on who you are. We're talking what you do for work, how you build your house, even the food you eat. And here is just a mind-blowing example of that in action. Get your head around this number. The city of London has almost the same number of people as the entire country of Sweden. That right there is the difference between what we call a dense urban area, a tätort, and a country that's much more spread out. And that kind of density has huge effects on your way of life. I mean, it demands enormous infrastructure. We're talking roads, trains, subways, just to make it all work. But on the flip side, it also means you have amazing access to jobs, to stores, to all kinds of services right there. So it's a trade-off, really. You get convenience and opportunity, but in return, you get less space and a much, much faster pace of life. So let's wrap up with this thought. Just take a second and think about your own world. Do you live near a river, a mountain? Are you out on a flat, open plain? Are you in a packed city or somewhere with tons of open space? How do those simple geographic facts of where you live actually shape your daily routine, your way of life? It's a pretty fascinating thing to think about, isn't it?